Psycho here, and I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite TV shows for 2025, more or less season. Now, I did the top 5 for the mid-year for movies and shows. This time, I'm going to do my top 10, and I did my top 10 favorite movies, and now I'm going to be doing this, and my most disappointing films, I'll be doing that at the end of the year. So the reason why I just stick with the top 5, because going from a 10, it'd probably be really difficult, and I feel like the difficulty is going to be in this list for the top 5 because some is going to be up there and then some is going to be not, and I battle all year long. And so now I finally got the list together, and I've seen over 50 plus new TV shows that came out this year. At least 25 are just new and had first seasons, and then at least the other half have pretty much have already established, from the very beginning, like of the years when they came out. Like Reacher, for example, came out in like 2019, 2020, and then season 2 and 3 came out like 2 or 3 years apart from each other. So yeah, those will be like way down on the list. But anyways, before I get to my top 5, I want to give a few honorable mentions on here that did not make the list, and the ones that didn't make the list that was really close that could have made it was Paradise. Paradise, that's on Hulu right now. And Paradise starring James Marsden, Sterling K. Brown, and Julian Nicholson, and all three of them are pretty much playing. They're pretty much portraying pretty much homicide agents and detectives, and homicide agents, detectives, and they pretty much are trying to track down, like, and protect. Their responsibility is to protect the president, but when the president was feeling unsafe and unharmed, they were tracking down and locating any whereabouts of who might have want any idea of wanting the president dead or anything. So I really enjoyed this show. I think this was very underrated. Did not get that much talked about. A lot from a lot of online critics, even on Rotten Tomatoes, or whether they're doing YouTube, people doing online YouTube critics have not really pushed this film enough and not really praised it enough for me. And each episode was very riveting. It was very distanced. It was very on point and very straight to the forefront, man. And like I said, they said they pretty much their task was safeguarding the former president. I thought it was very interesting and compelling. My favorite episodes was probably in the Palaces of Crown Kings. The character who played Xavier, let me look him up real quick. Yeah. So yeah, Sterling K. Brown, the main character, is Xavier Collins, and then James Marsden is Carl Bradford, and Centera, played by Julian Nicholson. So Xavier in this one, in this fifth episode, he pretty much is responsibility of, like I said before, like the rest of the other detectives, is safeguarding the president. But what happens is, of this investigation that happening, and also Cal's family history, and he ends up finding out about his friend's Cal family history, and of course, his last days, before he became who he is as a detective, was examined. And yeah, it gets to the nitty and gritty from there. And that fifth episode all the way up, it really gets into the nitty gritty of the show, man. And of course, the back and forth between Robinson, Xavier, Sinatra, and Xavier and Robinson, like all of them had their own back and forth and all their own exchange, man. It really kept me engaged. It really kept me going, wondering what was guessing on what was going to happen next with Xavier's character, what was going to happen next with Carl, what was going to happen next with Sinatra. Like, everybody had their own moral compass and what was going on next. So I really enjoyed this one. It's on Hulu. Check it out. Definitely something that will keep you invested. and will keep going. I was really impressed with it all the way through. Like I said, in the Palace of the Crown Kings, that's the 5th episode. Is probably my favorite one, and I definitely, if I mean, of course, in the beginning, let me go in a little bit of detail in the beginning. Let me kind of go and break down the episodes real quick. So in the beginning of the first episode, I'll just say this. Like I said before, they pretty much safeguarding the president. Xavier pretty much is going back through different crime scenes. He was investigating. What could have been a factor of the murder of the president. Like in the episode titled "Wildcat is Down," he pretty much is recalling his own. Let me see. I don't know any detail about that. No. I can't really get to breaking down the episode because it don't give me the description all the way through. But anyways, the first episode really keeps you engaged about Xavier and what he's examining the past. Oh, here we go. That's what I was talking about. So basically, he was analyzing a big crime scene. What happened with a complex relationship with the one of the main victims, who had been connected in a very powerful and high place. And that's all I pretty much am gonna say about that. Just know when you get yourself into it with that episode, and then of course, next afterwards, we end up getting to more of Sinatra and her story, her backstory. Yeah, it really gets down to the nitty and gritty. So I definitely would check it out and once you keep going, you won't miss a beat. It keeps going everywhere second down to the T. So another honorable mention for me that did not make the list was Daredevil Born Again. I've done plenty of coverage on this channel about this one. So I'll go into brief detail. So we get a lot of big character, big villain appearances from the White Tiger, from Bullseye. In the main first episode, we found out more about Matt Murdock, Daredevil, his best friend Foggy Nelson, and of course they was in Hell's Kitchen. They was talking, him and Paige, and they had a conversation. And then of course we end up seeing that Foggy was murdered, like way out in cold blood in the first episode. So we really pretty much got in the gap, and pretty much what you gather it from there, it leaves you wanting more, leaves you wanting guessing more and answers about, of course, why his best friend was murdered, of course. Then what did Bullseye has connected to the picture, and then later on we end up seeing more information about the White Tiger, how the White Tiger was getting caught up in trouble with the law. Karen Page, she didn't last too long after what happened with Foggy and of course Matt. So she left, and then eventually when she came back, she ended up seeing that Matt was having a conversation with John Bernthal, Frank Castle, the Punisher. And then once we get to that, it was just all the way on popping from there. Then of course we know about Kingpin and his ordeal, his details, man, and him running for mayor in the 112th district in New York, and he pretty much has his own goals and own plans in mind, just to try to run New York, pretty much like the oil companies, the oil refinery, and just he wants to try to he pretty much basically is trying to run his own numbers up and settle his own scores, because he knows he had a troubled past and he can't go back to doing the same things and the terrible demented things that he done before in the past. But his wife does. His wife is pretty much on that same lines. She ends up breaking another criminal in the show, ends up breaking him out and have him escape. But man, this show really kept me engaged. It kept me going. There was a lot of really great casting choices, great casting appearances. Matt Murdock finally had a love interest in his life that he didn't have in the first three first three seasons, of the other Netflix Daredevil show. And this was more Marvel Disney Plus. So he finally found a love interest that connected with him. So really dig and really dug everything about this show, man. And like I said, I've already done more breakdown in brief detail of all 8 episodes. Excuse me, all 9 episodes and everything. So it's really, really dope. I definitely enjoyed it. Um, but just didn't make my list is an honorable mention. And last but not least, the last show that did not make this list, but I was really close of putting it on here. Really, really close of putting it on here. And that, my friends, is Dexter Resurrection. Yes, this show almost made my list. And the only reason, I mean, for those of you who did not know that I did a review on this, but I'll just, like I said, give another brief summary. So, Michael C. Hall as Dexter Morgan pretty much returns to New York to finally reconnect with his long lost son. Then we end up seeing all of his past come to trickle down and unfold. We end up seeing, if I can, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. Oh, here we go. That's what I'm looking for. And yeah, his past comes back to haunt him. You know, down in Miami. You know, Angel Batista, played by Daniel Reyes. He pretty much was after him since that very much time back in the day, and he still is pretty much after him. You know, we end up getting some new villains, some new characters. You know, we introduce Peter Dinklage as Leon Prater, who has obsessively had so much of the weaponry of all the main big player cards of serial killers. He had all the weapons stored pretty much in his own in his own office, in his own office in a log story building, 10-story building. Then of course Charlie Brown, played by Uma Thurman, was pretty much pretty much like a hit person. Like, she does all the kind of hits and kills. We end up getting more of the Lady Vengeance, played by Christian Ritter. She had a really good performance. I really like that. But my favorite episodes in here had to be, let me pull this up. My favorite episodes was episode 4, Call Me Red. And let me see. Yeah, this is the part what I was talking about, where he pretty much is attending a gathering, and he was he was pretty much getting shown by, of course, a highly influential figure named Leon Prater. And of course, he figures out and he now gets a call from his son. He's struggling with guilt and pressure at work, knowing about his father's past of being a serial killer. And then of course, we see Angel arriving in New York City. Man, this is the episode that really, really hit for me the most. It impacted me a lot, and definitely had so much stakes left to be unfolded and untold. And man, it gravitated me all the way throughout. So I definitely recommend this episode, and not just this one, but the whole entire show. But it really, really encapsulated me. Another one of my favorite ones. Let me get detail on this. It's part 3, episode 3, called Backseat Driver. And this is the episode, of course, Dexter finds out about. He ends up getting help from Camaro to help him with his rideshare driver lifestyle. And of course, his son is drawn more deeper. That police start questioning him, start thinking about what he knows about certain murders, about what happened to Deborah, his mom, and then of course his wife. And then he knows about any other murders of victims that he keeps stored. Like, they was asking Harrison, his son, that, and he had no idea what the police was asking him about. So of course he didn't reveal anything, didn't give anything up. But yeah, man, definitely check out this whole entire show. I really enjoyed this one. Didn't make the list, but I just wanted to mention it real quick. So now let's get into the top five. Now let's get into my top five. We didn't stall time for that. Now, my number five pick of the best or my favorite TV shows is called Common Side Effects. Yes, Common Side Effects. This is my number five pick of my favorite shows of the year. Now, this is Adult Swim cartoon, and two former high school lab partners, Rick Kruger and Harrington, stumble upon a mushroom that can heal almost anything, apart from the corporate interests of the DEA, Big Pharma, and international businessmen. Now, this show is absolutely sensational. It keeps you absolutely on your toes, and yeah, it tells you more about, like I said, policing. It tells you more about the DEA, Big Pharma, pharmaceutical companies, and how it pretty much, they pretty much dirty capitalists, and they know exactly what they're doing to like just American individuals, American people, like how they like to get over. And it also breaks down so much about grief and about grief and dirty capitalism, and the pedigree of just of corporate interests and big businesses, and how they love to make money off of off of people's taxpayer dollars. But at the same time, it also teaches you about the essence of like knowing about just life and really developing and being aware of your surroundings. Uh, I like this. Let me get to my parts of my episode I really enjoy. So, episode 2, Lakeshore Limited. I really like this one because Marshall, as he's on his fleet in New York, Frances confides her boss, Rick, about the mushroom. Rick sends her to Marshall's farm to get more, but the situation gets out of hand. This, of course, the neighbors, Frances and Marshall, get into a absolute crazy incident, and man, it gets all the way through, and it just leaves you wanting and guessing and wondering and keeping on what's going to happen more and what's going to happen next. Really enjoyed that one right there. I really want to highlight, of course, Starlight, episode 5. This is where Frances and Marshall attempt to grow their last mushroom supply, hoping their plan works. Capano and Harrington surveilling Frances and Marshall run into danger, confronted by a neighboring BMX gang. Yeah, this also, like I said, this also teaches you more about just, like I said, being aware of your surroundings, knowing your surroundings, and trying to know exactly how the real world and how the world works. It's not just living a fantasy, living a drama, but just like, observing and obsessing and really engulfing yourself into the reality of the situation, and it really teaches you in that sense. So definitely enjoyed this one. And then last but not least, I would say probably the last episode, called Raid, and pretty much agents from the FBI and DA storm the site with tragic consequences. The fate of the mushroom is decided. So as Frances and Marshall, pretty much their project is going out of hand. After they start growing it for so long, and start growing it, it gets notable that it's a dangerous force, it's a dangerous site, and their business is pretty much starting to go awry. And of course, the FBI, DA coming in and start looking for answers and looking for this case to really be fully resolved. So yeah, man, this is an absolute phenomenal show. Definitely did not get mentioned by a lot of folks. It probably won't get mentioned by anybody. But yeah, this definitely was educational and teaching for me. So check it out, man. Common Side Effects at number 5. Now, coming in at number 4, and which was initially number 1 on my list for a while, for a long period of time, mainly for the entire year, or at least up until October, was Severance. Man, Severance. If you ever watched the show called The Office, then I believe you'll know about the whole innie and outie. I think you'll pretty much know about these whole situations. So I've done a breakdown of the show and everything, about Mark, played by, let me see, yeah, Mark played by Adam Scott. Shout out to Brett Lauer, Patricia Arquette, John Turturro, Zach Cherry. Everybody just did their thing in this one, man. They all really. Christopher Walken as Burt. Burt was really important in here. Really important in this second season. There was an episode I think involves around with the goats. I thought that was crazy, but in general, this season, two, just up to Annie from the first season by miles, by spades. And I really enjoyed this one, man. It really kept me engaged on what could be possibly occurring next, man. Especially episode 5 called Trojan Horse. This episode, which we saw about the loss of Irving. Oh, sorry. Let me just look at that real quick. Damn it. So in episode 5, we pretty much got tensions becoming so abruptly apparent because the team in the NE has suffered a loss, and one of the main losses. If you haven't seen it, I'm not gonna explain to you about that, but one of the main losses before we get to that point, Mark and of course, what's his name, and Bird and everybody, they all had this dinner from the in the 6th episode, and then in here they pretty much after tensions was going on, and Mark was taking such a risk, and a lot of things, trials and tribulations came talking about coming back on his past. Before we even get to that point too, we there was so much going on about the whole about the innies and outies, and then of course with the whole company with Mark, Helly, Irvin, and Dylan. They try to uncover the truth about the workplace and secrets, of course, that was surrounding them. Then Mark has some conversation with Lumen. Lumen grapples with the fallout of the contingency, and after that, it like before and afterwards, from episodes 2 all the way to 5. I mean, all the way to 6. Excuse me. They all really get up there. You really start to tackle and really start to figure out things with all 4 of our main leads and just the whole contingency, the whole company, the whole innie and outie, the whole company, and how their workplace is not as it's not all contingent as all it's cracked up to be. And I really enjoyed that about this show. It keeps you guessing, it keeps you on your toes. I think it might have been okay. This is the last episode called Cold Harbor. There was an episode that I wasn't really the hugest fan of as far as with the whole goat situation, the whole goat scene. I thought that was kind of a little bit unwarranted, but I get why they did it, but it just didn't really make much sense. But other than that, the episode itself was cool, but the whole show in general just really kept me engaged, really kept me captivated all the way throughout the entire year. So yes, number 4 I have is Severance. Let me get in there. Yeah, so yeah, number 4 I have is Severance. If you have not seen this one, it's on Apple TV Plus. Please go check it out. If you really want to know about Mark and Helly, Irving, and Bert and everybody, and the whole company, just please check out seasons 1 and 2. You'll definitely get more insight, about their whole the workplace and their whole the office work facility and the contingency. You know, all of them, at certain points in time start questioning each other. It was, loss of one of the members that as we thought and assumed. It was so much going on that really just kept me engaged. I'd highly recommend you guys to check it out. Really enjoyed it. Very entertaining. All right. So let's get into number 3. And my number 3 show of 2025 is entitled Dope Thief. Yes, Dope Thief. It's a crime drama miniseries starring Brian Tyree Henry and Wagner Moura. And they were two lifelong friends posed as DEA agents to rob a house, only that they had their small-time grift become life and death enterprise. And they revealed and unraveled a big hidden narcotics corridor in the eastern seaboard. This came out so early in the year, in March. So, yeah, I had the opportunity of watching this, and man, did it resonate with me so much and a lot. Shout out to, like I said, Manny Carvalho, Wagner Moore, and Ray Driscoll, Brian Tyree Henry. They pretty much were the stars of the show. Of course, there were casting other appearances like Vig Rams as Bart, his father, Bart Driscoll. They all were good, but this show mainly revolves around Manny and Ray Driscoll. Them both were pretty much the stars of the show, and you pretty much following their whole storyline and them trying to crack down houses in suburban and urban neighborhoods, looking at different dealings and do different drug dealings, different coke dealings and smugglings and different things so they can bust. They can find their way, into being on top and to still remain where they could go at and go from. My favorite episode is you really get a chance to really figure out a lot about more of them is Run, Die, or Relapse. So of course this is the episode where Ray searches for Manny as the biker gang close on their whereabouts. DA agent seeks for new clues in their hunt for Ray. So yeah, there's a local biker gang that's pretty much after both of them. And yeah, this episode just really, really hit me a lot. It really struck me to a core. It really, really kept me engaged on what was going on and what I was wondering what was going on next. Really, really felt special. Really, really felt the tension. It grabbed me all the way right there. Then I would say probably the next one called Philadelphia Lawyer. This is the part where Ray, and this is the overview for Ray seeks his son's help from a biker gang, then Manny sinks further in despair. Soon the agents pressure Michelle in order to get Ray, because Ray was pretty much gone. He's pretty much there. And yeah, Ray's been gone missing. Of course, this local biker gang from previous episodes. And Manny is trying to not panic and not go ballistic, not go super raw, because he knows his friend is pretty much in danger. And yeah, they go through so many different links and try to go along with the ride. Yes, this also is taking place in Philadelphia. By the way, the show's location was taking place in Philadelphia, if you didn't know that. But yeah, man, really, really hits hard. All right, my number 2 show. Transitioning to my number 2 show of 2025. And that is the Pittsburgh medical drama series, season 1 of The Pitt. Yes, The Pitt, starring Catherine Lanassa, Noah Weil, Sean Halsty, Taylor Dearden, Patrick Ball, and Tracy Effetsure. And we pretty much get the story and the ordeal of an explanation changes, of course, healthcare workers in America seen through the lens of frontline heroes working in a modern day hospital in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And let's just say this. If you really are a fan of doctor and ER films, you will definitely, and medical drama, you will definitely be a fan of this show. This show really is captivating. This show does so much. This show does so much work to really hit you all the way to the core, all the way around. And it's definitely something that I'm just so focused and enamored on. I really want to know exactly what I was getting myself into, and I do. I mean, this is a show that kept me engaged throughout the whole time. I thought the whole cast was really good, from Noah Weil and Catherine Catherine Lanassa, Taylor Dearden, and Patrick Ball. Everybody just did the job. I think they pretty much have something going for itself, man. And this is all going in timelines, by the way. This is all going in timelines of time periods. So, if anybody who was not sure what was going on, but I'll just say this. My favorite episodes in here where it really starts to crack down was episode 6, 12 p.m. Well, this is the part where Mel was searching for the patient's daughter, and Colin mediates the family conflict. Teen over pregnancy. Robbie faces a hospital ultimatum, and Santos deals with the ego check. In episode 7 and 1 p.m. was after checking an influencer without symptoms. Samira challenges Robbie. Meanwhile, Santos deals with a patient facing assault charges. In episode 8 until 2 p.m. is while Robbie attends to an elderly patient ties to Pittsburgh's history, other members of the team attempt to rescue a young drowning victim. Yeah, those episodes are absolutely captivating and mesmerizing, and it really shows exactly what it is like, having to not only operate on care patients, but a lot of grief, a lot of conflict, a lot of just bickering and bantering, and just knowing exactly the lives that are at stake of taking care of these patients, treating them with the kind of care that they want to be treated. Man, it was just something that really hit me a lot, and really just struck me at a really good core. And I was really focusing on just how, like I said, Noah Weil, Taylor Dearden, everybody was just having their own moments. It didn't feel like anybody was just standing out over top of each other. I feel like everybody was very complimentary. Definitely complimentary. And then number one, I think pretty much my favorite show that came out this year. And like I said, Severance was initially gonna be my number one show, TV show of the year, until this one came out, and that is It, Welcome to Derry. And I just did a review on this just a few days ago. Man, It, Welcome to Derry definitely takes that number one spot of the best show of the year. Like, there was no other show to me that really just took aback everything left and right. This is one of the better TV series adaptations of all these kids. You just gotta really figure out and fit all within a T, from with establishing characters from Charlotte and Leroy, Dick Halloran, and then of course the kids with Rich and Will, Mike, uh, Lily, and then of course Marge when she came into the fold. This show was absolutely brilliant. This show was so mesmerizing and captivating, and it definitely holds that number one spot for my favorite show of the year. And I highly recommend you guys to check it out. But other than that, those are my top favorite. Those are my top 5 favorite shows of the year. From Common Side Effects Severance, Dope Thief, The Pit, and Welcome to Derry. Uh, those are my thoughts of my favorite shows of the year. And we got one more list to do left, and that is the most disappointing films of the year. And then after that, the most anticipated shows and films of the year. So be on the lookout for that. All right, I'm out. Peace.